Yellow.
Hey man, what's going on?
Whoa.
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 It's like Joey from Blossom.
Oh God.
Whoa. I can't do it.
I don't think I've ever seen a complete episode of Blossom.
I guess that's not a horrible, it's not a
Yeah.
horrible thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of proud of it now that I think about
Yeah.
it.
It's not like a bucket list show by any means.
No. Hey everybody, welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective for the week of May 19th, 2019. I am your host, Drew, and you are listening to... fuck.
Shit. All right, there's the blooper reel.
Oh, God damn it.
I had a feeling that was going to happen. I was like, oh, shit, no.
You
He
felt-
slipped on the banana.
Yeah. I missed the episode number and it threw me off.
That was like a true, Mario Kart, banana.
Oh, God, fuck those bananas.
I fucking, dude, sometimes I just gravitate towards them like a magnet. I don't know why. It's all, I just, in the heat of the moment, I feel like it's like a power up. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 25. Holy
Jesus.
crap. 25. It's the week of May 19th, 2019. I'm your host, Drew. Happy birthday, Will. It's episode 25.
It's not my birthday, though.
What? It's the show's birthday. Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
no, it is. It
us.
is. I'm
Anniversary?
very excited about it, man.
Is it an anniversary? Is it a week-iversary? I mean, this is something that is weighing on my mind. What do we call this? And we have the lamest fucking episode planned.
I don't know. I guess we could go as far as calling it a milestone.
It is a milestone, and I'm very happy to have it.
Yeah.
Man, this is cool. We made it to 25 episodes.
Yeah, it's weird. When I went to title the episode on GarageBand, I was like, wow, I'm typing episode 25. I can't believe we've just made it this far. I mean, it's not like we've been doing this for years by any means, but it's still cool to get to that point.
Hey, man, most podcasts don't make it to episode 10.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm happy to be here.
Likewise, man. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I
Sigh
am-
relief, I hope.
It is. I finished up my major projects for school yesterday. I finished up the final one.
Oh, good.
And I mean, the OCD in me wants to go and still make changes before I share it with the public, because these are things that
Naturally.
I'm going to be posting them on YouTube and everything, and it's going to be part of my portfolio reel. So there's definitely stuff that I want to change, to fix, and all that. But for the grade, for my deadline, I'm done.
Good. Congrats,
And
man.
it is a huge weight off my shoulders. Now I have other stresses, but at least I can deal with those stresses by themselves at this point.
Yeah.
Not just, combined with all the other shit. So,
Sure.
How are you?
I'm well. I wish that the weather was warmer. I feel like it's crazy that it's very raw outside lately, especially today.
Yep.
I have a fucking hooded sweatshirt on and sweatpants. I mean, granted, it's my day off, but still, it's May 14th. I know it's technically still sort of mid to late spring, but still, man, come on.
Dude, I have been trying to turn off my heat for the past month, and I keep having to turn it back on.
Yeah, you just can't do it.
Can't do it. You wake up
No.
and you're freezing, and it's you can't wake up cold.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
I refuse. I'm very stubborn, when it comes to weather. I'm very, calendar oriented. So, if I feel like it's not warm, on May 14th, I'll protest. I'll be like, fuck this. I'm refusing to wear a jacket. And sometimes, I will go out with a t-shirt on, even if it's kind of cold.
But then you're
I'm
suffering.
Fuck this.
But then
I'm suffering.
Yeah.
You can't win.
You can't win.
Not in New England.
No. And I mean, don't even get me started on the rain. Anyway.
No, God. Yeah. Anyways, yes, I am well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Let me take a little time to talk about our social media stuff, and then we'll dive into the mailbag because we have a lot of great questions to hit up. First of all, thank you everybody for downloading the show. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to us for the first time, you can find us in iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Will and Drew's podcasts. I mean, there's so many different podcast locations. Just search for the show. You'll find us. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGR Podcast. It's at WDGR Podcast. And of course, we have a Discord room. Come on in, say hello. The link for that will be in the show notes. Will, if somebody would like to find you on social media, how can they do so?
Will_gear.
You can find me at Scion Storm. And yeah, let's just jump right into the mailbag. Weird week for us. We are recording on Tuesday the 14th this week. So our previous episode literally published this morning, and we already have some questions for today's episode that we're recording now. So Joe Donut says, what is your most unpopular gaming opinion? Bonus points if you can make your co-host disappointed in you.
Classic Joe here. I found this one to be kind of a challenge because I had to kind of, clarify exactly what you were saying here, Joe. But I think, I don't know, why don't you go first here, Drew?
Well, I have a couple.
Okay.
My first one is open world games are unnecessarily long.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think there's truth to that. And then there's also, the other side of the coin where sometimes they're meant to be long, or some people will view them as being not unnecessarily long. So there's kind of a few different angles with that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times the length of these games are just blown up by fetch quests and side missions that really just take away from what the story is.
I agree.
And I mean, there's certain games that have done it well. I think Horizon is a great example of a game that nailed it. But there's other games where like you just go in this open world and it's like, why? Why even bother? Why is this an open world? This shouldn't be an open world.
Yes, indeed. I could probably think of a few titles, but that's going to stir up some emotions too, because like everybody is very opinionated on what they consider to be a worthy open world. So it's a tough one. I feel like Witcher 3, I've mentioned many times before, even though I've played very little of it, I hear that the fetch quests and a lot of the side quests are what makes that game. Same with Skyrim, and I agree with that. But at the same time, like it's tricky. I think that you can lose a little track of what's going on in the main story sometimes when you're doing a lot of those kind of quests.
Yeah, and especially if you're not like staying with the game 100%. Like if you get sidetracked by another game, or you're unable to stick with the game for real life commitments, whatever the case is, you step away and then you come back and you're just totally lost. And I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me where I've been playing a game, maybe I'm enjoying it, maybe I'm not, but I'm playing it, and then I walk away from it and I have no idea, when I come back where I left off. And those open world games, like if you're playing a game, I think a good example of a game that kind of went against this grain is Final Fantasy 13, because it was so linear, being an RPG, which, tend to be somewhat open, or they usually have a point where the game opens up, right? FF13 really didn't have that until the end. So even if you stepped away from it for 2 months, 3 months, you pick it back up and you can only go forward. There's no left or right, and I mean, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I generally, with an open world game, I don't like to stray too far away from it, meaning like I want to stick with it. Even games like Skyrim, like, I mean, I haven't played that game in a while, and I had a really good kind of beat going with it, good rhythm. With just kind of playing it consistently. And if I fired that game up today, as much fun as it probably would be, it's going to take me some time to refamiliarize myself with what I was doing, because of the fact that there's so much that you are doing at all times that if you don't stick with it, then absolutely you can get lost.
I agree. Are you ready with your example yet, or should I go with another one?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Go for it.
I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts about, I guess, an unpopular opinion, which would be mine, which is I'm not a fan of zombies, really in
Hmm.
any kind of format, in any kind of game, especially Call of Duty.
Hmm.
I know at one point, like, that just became like the main attraction, I feel like, where people were like, wait, does it have zombies? Or like that phrase, does it have zombies, I think was something that was just being thrown around like everywhere. And like, you had it in Red Dead Redemption 1 with Undead Nightmare. You had it in Call of Duty.
Hmm.
You had it in games like Left 4 Dead. And, there's so many iterations of just zombie games. And I just feel like it was a huge craze. I want to say it started in like 2011, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
But god damn, dude, like I tried it once, I think in Black Ops 1, and it just wasn't for me. Like I get the idea behind like hoarding off a bunch of enemies, right? I think that's more the fact that it's zombies.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I don't know. I don't care. I don't care for it. I feel like my opinion is unpopular because I think most people do care about zombies and it's a very popular thing. But I don't get it, man. I'm not into hoarding off a bunch of enemies like with like a couple teammates. I mean, I can see the fun side of it, but like just with Black Ops 1, it was just like, okay, here comes the next horde. And it's just like, playing for like sometimes 2-3 hours just hoarding out zombies. And I don't know. I don't get it.
What about something like Resident Evil?
Now, that is something, I'm glad you brought that up. In that format, the way that they depict zombies is how I want them to be depicted, which
So
is
like
not.
horror then.
Yeah, more of like a horror side. I want a zombie to be super scary. I want it to be frightening. I don't want it to be like, oh, big waves of
Hmm.
zombies that I'm hoarding off. I think that element to certain zombie games or parts of games that have zombie modes, that I'm not into. But if it's done in the right way, then I
Hmm.
think that Resident Evil 4 is a great example. I love that game. There are times where you have to hoard off quite a few,
Hmm.
but it's fucking terrifying.
What
But
about what about a game like Dead Rising?
don't know much about it. I think that's the one where isn't that like a modern day world where you're like in malls and shit at times and like you have to hoard off a bunch?
Well, yeah, I mean to some degree, you tend to be surrounded, but they're not like coming at you in waves. Like they're just occupants of those buildings.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know enough about it.
I've only really played the first game. I it wasn't for me. I mean, but it was pretty cool, I guess.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say much about it. I know a little bit vaguely about what
Mhm.
that game is, but generally speaking, yeah, that's I guess that would be my take on an unpopular opinion is I fucking hate zombies.
Okay. So this one, I don't know if it's truly unpopular, but I feel like um, it's controversial at the very least. Um, Orchestral music in video games is not as good as 8-bit and 16-bit music.
Hmm. Okay.
And I know I'm going for the jugular on this one with you.
Yeah. So
So, Joe, did I get those bonus points?
yeah, I mean, I'm going to just say flat out, like orchestral beats 8-bit or any other format really any day for me. If the game is actually scored with a real orchestra or like a real soundtrack that's not in an 8-bit format or MIDI or whatever,
Mm.
to me that's better. I mean, there's a charm with something like, what Damien's playing today. He's playing The Legend of Zelda, and that's going to be like a 8-bit MIDI whatever format of music. Um, and like I said, there's a great charm to that, but I would prefer something like, let's just take Heavy Rain soundtrack over a game like that any day.
But here's the thing, though. How many people can actually hum the soundtrack to Heavy Rain or any of those games? But how many people can hum the soundtrack to Legend of Zelda
Mm,
or Street Fighter or Mario Brothers? Like, that's the thing. Those titles, anything from that era, it has memorable music because they were so confined to the instruments that they were able to use that they had to come up with stuff that was creative and catchy. And I think it really forced musicians when they were composing these games to put in the extra effort to not just write bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think there were some games that use an orchestral soundtrack that do have very memorable things, but I mean, how many of them can you hum? How many of them can you recall right now? But if I say to you, what's the theme for Super Mario Brothers? What's Guile's theme?
Oh, I mean,
you know it already. See? There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's I hate to kind of coincide and condone the whole like meme concept behind that theme, but god damn, is that theme good.
It goes with everything.
It really does. Like whoever came up with that, like it goes with everything. They're 100% right.
What about I'm sure if I gave you anybody off of Street Fighter 2, there's their music. Right.
Oh, sure.
Ken.
Sure.
Honda. Any of them. So,
yeah, I mean that Street Fighter 2 is one of the greatest games ever made. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you raise a great point. I think that there's a time and place for that, and I respect that world of music as well. But I think just for me personally, I prefer orchestral, and I guess I'm just more modern in that sense. But
modern.
Yeah, I know this is Will and Drew's gaming retrospective. So we got to keep that in mind.
We haven't been very retro lately, though.
We have not, no.
Let's see here. Vortex asks, any interest in Rage 2? And did you ever play Rage 1?
I know a lot of people that played Rage 1 when that game came out. I never took any interest because it's not my wheelhouse, or not in my wheelhouse. But as far as Rage 2, no idea, man. I know it was like announced. I didn't watch anything on it.
Yeah, I mean, with Rage 2, I jumped into it because, or I took a look at the trailer after Vortex suggested it. I was not aware that the game was even coming out, and it caught me by surprise. I remember that it had been announced, but beyond that, I hadn't recalled, seeing anything about it, and then it just caught me out of nowhere. I really have not been paying attention to upcoming game releases. I have to say I'm a bad gamer. No fucking clue. I don't even know what's coming out this year. But I've been a fan of id Software for a long time, dating back to the original Doom and Wolfenstein on the PC, when those games were released. So when Rage came out, the first game, I was 100% on board with giving it a try. And I remember when that game was released, there were some issues with the graphics card that it supported. I don't remember the specifics, but it was something along the lines of it wasn't compatible with like an ATI graphics card. It was only compatible with NVIDIA graphics cards. And this was a huge uproar. And people protested until they finally made the game compatible with the other platform. I don't remember which was which, right?
Yeah.
I had a copy of it on the PC. And at the time, my PC was it was all right. I could play some decent games, but I wasn't like able to play just about anything. And when I tried firing it up after they resolved whatever this complaint was, it ran like shit.
Oh.
And I tried. It looked cool, but I just bailed out on it. I couldn't play it. It was literally unplayable. And a few years later, I got my hands on a copy for the 360, and I had already moved on at that point, and I've never gone back.
Yeah.
It's an interesting premise. An asteroid hits the Earth, and now everybody's kind of like, I got like a very strong Mad Max vibe off of it, but
okay,
the humor, chaotic side of it. So it looks like with Rage 2, they're trying to combine like Mad Max and Borderlands. It's kind of that kind of vibe. And from what I can tell, the new game is going to be an open world because we need another fucking open world game in this this lineup. So I don't know. It's being well reviewed.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, not like stellar, but 8s, 7s.
Sure.
And that's fine. Not every game needs to be a 10.
Yeah, I remember that the first game, like, kind of, I don't know, having a short life, just from memory. Like, I remember, like I said, some of my friends were playing it, but I don't remember it, like, really having a lot of longevity.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't really like talk about it that much. It just kind of came out and people were like, oh, Rage, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of, I don't know, just kind of came and went.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. You know, the game just sort of came and went.
Yeah. And that was kind of it. Like no one really like spoke about it years later. And, you know, there's a lot of games where that happens, but, and it's completely normal. But usually when there isn't really that much talk about it, and then like the second one comes out, it ends up being kind of like a wait, what kind of moment. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess they're making a second one, you know,
Yeah.
like it just kind of happens sometimes.
You know, it just struck me as something as like, you know, I thought this franchise was dead.
Right. Exactly.
But from the reviews that I've read, it's almost like this is a completely independent piece of the puzzle, and they didn't call it a reboot, but they did say it might as well be. So,
yeah.
you know, it's like you don't need to play the first one to play the second one. You can figure everything out pretty quick. So, I don't know. I'm curious, but not overly so. I might, if I'm gonna grab that, I think I'll probably wait for like a GameFly sale.
Sure.
You know, get it for like $10 or something.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, Vortex also follows up. He says, "I'm listening to your new podcast, and this is regarding rage. What game has made you rage the hardest? Like super, super hard to the point where you broke something or just quit and never looked back. I think Will already knows my Street Fighter 4 rage moment with the controller."
Vaguely. I will say that my biggest rage probably came from the same game, actually.
Street Fighter
That
4?
game, oh yeah, that game is infuriating. Like, especially if you're playing online. I mean, there's a lot of really good players out there. So you could be playing like an amateur pro. You could be playing a pro. You could be playing just a guy who just happens to be really good with Ken. So yeah, I mean, I can say that for me, it probably was that. It might have been Bayonetta 1. There's some pretty ragey moments in that game. It's quite challenging at times, especially towards endgame. I could probably think of more, but like, yeah, those two stand out right now for me.
I have a small list.
That's good.
Dead or Alive 3 was a big one for me.
Okay.
The boss in that game was so fucking cheap, even at like the lowest difficulties. And that game was the Dead or Alive games are very much collectathons. You unlock like 20 costumes, and when I was playing the game, you know, I was probably I would say early 20s. You know, single horny dude. Let's get all the bikinis for the chicks, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
So I played the shit out of those games, and man, the Dead or Alive games are just so cheap, and it's a shame too because they're really good fighters. Like those games are deep. There's a lot going on aside from like, you know, the gratuitous tits everywhere. They are actually really good fighting games, and that's really what kept me coming back. You know, they're a lot of fun to play. There's a lot of variation from character to character, and I would get so pissed at that game, I would throw my controller.
Oh, sure.
Man.
I mean, there's plenty of games that will definitely make you do that or make you want to do it.
Right. Destiny is another one, or Destiny 2, I should say. I think it was King's Fall. Or wait,
Okay.
I'm getting my raids mixed up. It might have been Destiny 1. I don't know. But the King's Fall raid, there was this jumping puzzle in that game. And, man. Damien and Vic and Vency, those poor guys. I don't even know how to explain it, because like you'd be trying to get across this like giant chasm, and there would be these platforms, and some of the platforms were visible and some of them were hidden. And on top of it all, you were on this other side of the arena, or the where like these things would keep like shooting out of the wall at you, and they kind of look like giant penises, right? And they would just fly out of the wall and knock you into this void where you would fall and die and respawn and inevitably have to do it again and again and again and again, and it would get to the point where like everybody would be on the other side, and they'd be trying to tell me where to jump. And this is not like a one-time thing. This is a repeated thing that happened over and over and over again, and I just could not get it. And I would go silent. I would just, when I get pissed, I don't talk. I just go silent, right?
Yeah, I've had those moments.
And like three people would be telling me where to jump, and they'd be talking over each other, and I would just like lose my shit and be like, guys, I can't do this. You need to, one person at a time. And everybody would just go silent.
They'd be like, oh shit.
And then Damien would chime in, and he's like, okay, jump here. And they would shoot at the spot they wanted me to jump, and I would fall to my death. And I would respawn, and I'd get launched by a giant penis. it was just like over and over and over again. And it was one of the contributing factors for me in my decline in the game. When Destiny 2 came out, I gave it another go, but you know, I just those jumping mechanics in a shooter just weren't for me.
Yeah, there are certain platforming games and just certain games in general that have an effect, I think, on just a human psyche that will just instigate your inner rage.
Oh, man.
And, you know, Sekiro, I should have mentioned that game because it certainly got me mad, but in a different kind of way. I mean, there are games that will make you mad, like in a very, very visceral way. And then Sekiro is more like, God damn it, man. Like I fucked up again. Like it's definitely me. And then there are other games that are just fucking cheap, you know? Yeah. There absolutely are. I mean, there's a boss that Damien can speak about maybe on the next episode when we have him on in Metal Gear Rising. It's one of the later end bosses, the general dude. And God damn, dude, he was so cheap, and he had certain moves that, like, if you just didn't time it just right, you would die, like, instantly, and you have to start the whole thing over again. So there are moments like that in games that will just trigger a very specific kind of rage.
Yeah. Another one for me is Mario Party.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a different kind of rage.
Yes, it is. I think I spoke about that like on the last episode or maybe the one before that.
Probably. You're just, you think everything is fine. You spend all this time winning, and then somebody just fucking cheats. That's like the quickest way to lose friends.
Oh, yeah. Mario Party will absolutely become not a party anymore.
A lot of shmups get me pissed off. You know, shoot 'em ups.
Sure.
And then have you ever played E.T. for the Atari 2600?
God, no.
Oh God, what a dumpster fire.
Yep. I mean, there's a reason why they buried that game.
Yeah. Good documentary too, by the way. If you've
that was a good documentary. Yeah, I did watch most of what IGN covered on it.
Yeah. Anything else that comes to your mind?
I mean, fighting games, I think in general, are very rage-inducing for, I think, most people.
Yeah.
Unless you're really good, and it takes time to get really good. So, yeah, I think fighting games are probably going to be my number one if I had to choose like a genre. And it's probably just because I'm not that great at them. I'm good at certain ones, but not many because I just don't practice enough.
Yeah.
I just love them for what they are. So, yeah, I don't know. Most fighting games. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Damien at Saikuro asks, when will Scion Storm play Sekiro? Saikuro wants to know about Sekiro.
Yeah. Simple question, but a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week. You know, it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to listen to or play somebody else's copy before I buy my own. You know, so it's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
But you know, before I'm going to commit to that sort of game, I need to give it a go. And actually, it's very interesting that he brings that up too, because I was sitting down last night for the first time in about a month and a half, and I actually fired up my Xbox. And I guess this kind of segues in what you're playing now. I fired up my Xbox and I was looking for something to play, and I ended up playing Anthem, but I did notice that I have a copy of Dead Souls that must have been Game of Gold at one point.
Okay.
Dead Souls or Dark Souls? No, it's Dark Souls 1. Dark
Souls
1. And
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I might give it a try.
Yeah, it's worth that game you can actually like try. I know that kind of makes no sense, but there are certain games that I feel like are hard to just kind of try and see if it's for you. Some games you have to kind of commit to, but with Dark Souls, like I think you can play kind of like the first area and get a pretty good idea as to whether or not it's going to be a game for you.
Yeah.
And I think that the game sets that tone pretty quickly because it's challenging from the get-go. So I think that if, that time period, because the time period is kind of like a medieval setting, if that's not really your kind of speed, then you'll know right away. For example, one of my friends, Miles, who listens to the show, he recently played the first one. And he played, I guess, just a portion of it. He didn't mention how much, but he said it wasn't for him. And I was shocked because he's a huge Sekiro and Bloodborne fan. But those games are quite different than Dark Souls. They're very similar, but Dark Souls has a unique time period setting, and the way that the game controls is quite different than those two games. So, but you'll find out quickly. I would say like within about an hour or so, like you'll know if it's the right game for you.
Yeah, so you recommend I give it a shot?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, it's a good way to kind of enter into the FromSoft or the FromSoft world because that particular game is definitely, the one that sort of hangs above the rest still to this day. Like it's regarded as like, pretty much their best title.
Cool. Yeah, so maybe I'll give that a shot later.
Yeah, it's worth it.
We'll see. You've been playing Sekiro at all lately?
Yeah, still playing fairly consistently. I'll definitely be playing today. I don't have a lot planned for adulting, so
Nice.
I'll be able to stay in my sweats most of the day. But yeah, it's I made it to a new area. It's getting increasingly difficult now. And I spoke to my friend Miles recently, actually, about the game because he's been playing quite a bit of it. Yeah. And I believe he beat it, and he's trying to like platinum it, platinum the game now.
Okay.
And the area that I'm in, I told him like where I was, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, like just be prepared. Like it's gonna get harder, like from where you are, like drastically harder." So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm not looking forward to it because the area that I'm in, like definitely I can tell that the enemies are getting a lot more challenging, which is fine, but it can get discouraging because like you can get these kind of like episodes or swings of progression, and you kind of hit walls sometimes. Like you can get stuck on a boss, or you can get stuck on an area, just like any other game. But like sometimes it gets kind of disheartening because you're like, man, like I just want to kind of continue this progression here with like my momentum with getting through this game. And sometimes you just hit this area where you have to figure out like, how do I even get past this one section? And that's kind of where I'm at now. But that's the test of patience that this game challenges you with. Yeah. It puts you in these situations where you're like, okay, like there's no enemies here and there's no enemies there, but I'm going to put you up in a room where you're going to like encounter maybe 3 or 4 enemies that you've got to fight at once, and you've got to John Wick them, or you have to figure out how to get by them. And it's always throwing you a new curveball. But that's what I appreciate about the game.
So one of the things that we wanted to discuss today was strategy guides.
Yes.
And I think this is a good place to ask you about those because, it sounds like you're starting to get into an area of the game that is really pushing you to your limits. Have you, to preface, you purchased the Sekiro strategy guide. Have you been utilizing it?
Not yet. No, I recently got the guide in the mail. I had the guide pre-ordered. And just a little bit of a tidbit on this guide. It's made by a company called Future Press. They make what I consider the best guides in the business. I think they're one of the few guide companies that is around besides like Piggyback and Prima Games or Prima Games. And I think that, they make exceptional guides. And the reason why I buy them for most games is because they're just absolutely amazing. They're beautiful. They're well put together. They're usually like 600 pages sometimes. I mean, the Bloodborne guide, I think, is their largest one. That one's like a Bible. But they're just beautiful. And I love collecting art books and books. So for me, I think it counts as a collector's piece. But I do use them. I've used every one for the most part with all of those games. And I use them as reference guides. I don't use them as like, okay, I'm going to turn to every page and I'm going to use the walkthrough like verbatim, word for word, like this is the ladder you need to climb next, and then you're gonna
Right.
like I don't do that. I used to do that when I was younger with certain games because I just did, but I still play blind for the most part. If I'm stuck on an area, or if I feel like I might have missed an item, I'll use the guide just to make sure that, like, if it says that I was supposed to collect, say, X item, I might look to find out like where it is so I can get it. So I use it as like a little pocket guide, basically. That's how I use my strat guides. But no, I have not used it extensively really at all. I've just kind of paged through it, and it's probably going to be next to me today, though, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is it about the strategy guides in general that appeals to you? Is it mainly the artwork, or?
It's the artwork. It's the fact that it's a book. Kind of like I mentioned before, I love art books. And I think that Future Press and most strat guides usually will contain some art. And I think I like knowing about certain things in games that maybe you can't really find out without a guide. And you have the internet, you have threads, you have Reddit, you have YouTube, all that stuff. But sometimes like it takes almost more work to like research that stuff. When you have one guide, you have a guide. You have one thing that belongs to you that you can access at any time. Even if the power goes out, you got a fucking flashlight. Whereas with a YouTube video, you got to rely on the internet. So I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's like a old school approach. It's kind of like the same concept as how people prefer like a real book versus like a Kindle. It's the same kind of concept, I think, for me. Like I like that kind of stuff. I like having a book and I like having a strat guide because I kind of grew up with them as a gamer.
Right.
So perhaps it's a soft spot, and I'm still kind of like into that. But yeah, I think that kind of sums up why I still enjoy a strat guide here and there. And I think for me, it's only Future Press. I don't think I've bought a guide. Well, no, I did. I did buy a couple guides here and there for certain games. If it's a collector's guide, that's absolutely going to be bought. And yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. That's my fair concise opinion.
Yeah. I haven't bought a strategy guide in years. I used to be a big fan of them. But especially with like an RPG.
Yeah.
Because I was always about the trying to 100% the games. So like I had a lot of the Final Fantasy strategy guides or things like that, but as I've gotten older, I've stopped buying them because once you use them, like, or at least with me, once I used them, I never really circled back to them again. I never looked at them and opened them up and appreciated them because most of them were just strategy guides. It wasn't like anything else that was redeeming about them. The last ones that I bought were the Mass Effect ones, and those ones were a little bit special. A lot of times they would come out with like a hardcover edition, and those ended up being a little bit nicer. But even like I didn't buy one for Andromeda. I just bought the last one was for Mass Effect 3. I think that was the last strategy guide I bought.
Yeah, I think part of it too is like if you really love a game, then like you almost buy the strat guide just to fucking have it. Like, just because it's like part of that game. Like I think I did that with I absolutely did it with Metal Gear Rising. Part of it was because it came with like an art print. Like a limited art print. So there are usually incentives as to why I'll buy a guide. But yeah, man, if like next time you're over, I'll have you page through a couple of the Future Press guides, and I'm going to post some in the room for people to see as well.
Cool.
Even with some page excerpts as well, because I want people to understand that this company is incredible. I believe they're based out of Germany, and most of the designers and writers and authors are all from Germany. So we all know that Germany makes great things like cars, and they're great engineers, and they make great chocolate and great strategy guides. So
great beer.
And great beer. Yeah. So yeah, I'll post some stuff. They're fantastic books.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next topic.
Sure.
Final Fantasy VII trailer for the remake came out pretty recently, and what do you think, man?
It's, I mean, it looks good. I think a lot of people are worried for the same reason I'm worried, which is like, how's the combat going to be? I think a lot of people are very protective over the original game because it is something very special, and people want a remake and they want, next gen graphics, but I think they're more concerned about how the combat's going to play out, how the gameplay is going to look. And even though we've seen some tidbits from the first remake, and now apparently they're doing a whole new remake again because the first studio didn't do it right. From what I understand, that is what's happening.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so what you're seeing in this new trailer is a new remake that's being done by, I think, a different group of people, whereas the old trailer that came out, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever, that one is now scrapped, apparently, because they were having a lot of issues just getting the ball rolling. But yeah, I think it looks great. I think it's very promising. You're dabbling with... It's almost like you're trying to remake Pulp Fiction. Like it's a sensitive game to mess with because of the fact that the fans that support it are by the millions. So they're going to want to be careful, but I think that we just have to hope that they know what they're doing and that they're going to give us a great remake. I think that's all we can hope for, but it does look promising. It looks good. Yeah. It does look good.
I mean, visually, there was mostly cutscenes in the trailer. I don't think there was an awful lot of gameplay, if any. And it certainly does look, well done. At least the cutscenes do. But, oh man, it's really weird hearing voices for those characters,
It is. Even just seeing their faces just kind of like, I think we all have in our minds the polygon faces that, are just etched in our memory, and it's hard to imagine them any other way. And I think with the CGI or with the CG or whatever the fuck it is that they're using, the computer graphics, it's shaping up to look good, but it's just going to take some time to get used to. And I think that's because the game has been around for so fucking long. There's been a couple different iterations of it with remaster, touch-ups, and, there was a PC release, there was a PS4 release, there was quite a few different touch-up versions of that game.
Yeah, and, but never any straight up remasters.
No,
just
no,
enhanced graphics, but not really. It's like here are these polygons in HD.
Right, exactly. So
that sort of thing. I'm trying not to get overly excited about this because, it's going to be difficult for them to capture what made that game special.
Very.
In the first place. And I think a lot of it has to do with, when it came out. That game was released in 1997 and there was nothing like it.
Nope.
Not even close. And there's a lot of people that will say that it's not the best Final Fantasy. And that's fine. There are certainly, differing opinions on that, and a lot of people might have a point. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but for me, it was my first Final Fantasy, and I think for a lot of people, it was their first Final Fantasy, and that's what makes the game, I think, truly special. Not only was it the first Final Fantasy that they played, but it was also a revolutionary game in terms of the era. You had this blockbuster game of great length that spanned across 3 discs that combined, really good graphics for the time, with cutscenes that were also, pretty damn good, and had this incredible soundtrack. Kind of touching on what we were talking about earlier, this is one of the few games with an orchestral soundtrack that I can remember.
Sure.
I can remember those songs. I can hum a lot of them to you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that was a very, very memorable soundtrack.
It's just a really incredible game. And then the nice thing about it, too, is it was very possible to make the game have extra life to it because you could save your game before the boss battle and then just go and explore the world. They gave you a spot where it's here's the line. If you cross it, the game is over. And myself and a lot of other people would take and they would make a second save file, and then they would go and play the game for another 40, 50 hours.
Yeah, it's incredible. If we were to somehow figure out how many people played the game and how many hours people put in the game, it would just be millions. It's
Yeah,
got to be just millions of hours.
I mean, I can tell you right now, I probably dumped in about 120 hours on the
Yeah.
game. They the game stopped counting at 99.99.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, you couldn't roll the clock. So, I remember capping out, and I ended up getting, there was the magic system relied on materia, so you had Master Magic, Master Summon, and Master Command, which was basically, this gem does everything under that tier. And the only way to get those was to level up and master every single piece of magic in the game. And I did that 3 times. So all of my characters had every single spell available. It's a monumental undertaking, but I was determined.
Yeah, it really is a game of determination at some points. Like you just get to like a certain disc. Sometimes it gets really hard or it gets kind of like sluggish at times, but if you muscle through it, which I still need to do, I haven't even beaten that game.
Man.
Yeah, I know it's a crime. But
how far did you get?
I got to, oh gosh, I actually have the strat guide for that game, so I probably have to reference that to figure out now, like where I got to.
Yeah.
But very interesting story with that game, and I'll make it brief. Like basically, I loaded up that game and started it over, I don't know how many times, and kept getting to like a certain point, and either I would like delete a save file, or I lost a save file, or I traded in like a PS3. Like there were reasons why I kept like losing a save file, and I just never ended up like finishing it. And I think one of the last times I started it was, oh boy, I don't think it was in this house. It might have been when I was living in Windsor. I think I had a game going then. And I think for the same reason, I think I had a save file that was built into the PS3's like PS1 storage. Because like they have like, I'm sure you're familiar that they have like a very special like PS1 storage system in that. Like it's like a virtual memory card. I think I had it stored on there, and I got rid of that PS3 for some reason. I don't know. There was always like a weird fucking reason as to like why I didn't finish that goddamn game. But I absolutely adore it. I still have the original PS1 like hard disk copy, greatest hits, mint condition. I'll never get rid of it. And yeah, I just have to like hunker down, man. I mean, that is a game that you absolutely have to hunker down with. Like there's no, I'm just going to casually play this every once in a while. It's going to take you fucking forever. It's going to take you years to finish.
Right. That's the thing right there. You got to put time in on it, but it's worth it. I think it's a rewarding game. It had a good story. The gameplay was good, and maybe it's a little cliche nowadays, but I definitely think it's worth going back for. And I'm looking forward to checking out the remake. There was a little bit of backlash about the character Barrett. I don't know if you heard anything about that. There a little bit of backlash about him when he was initially out as being kind of a stereotypical black person, and then now that the voiceovers are coming out, they kind of went with the Mr. T approach.
Okay.
And there's been some backlash about that too. So that's a little touchy,
Yeah, I mean, we're in a touchy world now. That's the difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they probably could have made a better choice there, but outside of that, I think the game is, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I absolutely am. I think anybody would be kind of doing themselves a disservice if they said that they were not looking forward to it. I think that deep down inside, we all are, as skeptical as we may be because of the rough road that it's been on for all these years. But we just have to have faith, because this is a game that I think we've always wanted to see remastered, and it actually is happening. We just have to stay patient.
If you could remaster any game from 20 years ago or back, what would it be?
It like 20 years ago or more?
Yeah. It can't be anything within the past 20 years.
Okay. I guess this is a tough one.
Give it the same treatment that this game is getting.
Sure. Honestly, man, as much as I talked about it recently, probably Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I'm pretty sure that's 20 years old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
I think it was 96 when that came out.
That would be fun.
I would love to see that like done with like a great studio. Like maybe even BioWare might be a good one for that. Or just LucasArts, like if they got back together and it was kind of like how it used to be, and they kind of, made just this beautiful version of that game and left everything exactly how it was, just with like a complete remaster.
Yeah.
I would, oh my God, would I pre-order that game?
Yeah.
That would be like I'm going to pay for this in full now.
Yeah.
Though that one of those kind of pre-orders, not $10. We're going to pay the $64 and we're going to pay for this now.
Sold.
Yeah, that's one that I can think of quickly. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more, man, but
yeah,
that would be amazing to see.
I would love Colony Wars remaster. Do you remember that game?
No, I don't think I do.
Space shooter, kind of in the veins of like Wing Commander, that sort of thing, but it was on the PlayStation, and it was one of the first games to kind of use like polygonal ships, but it was just a gorgeous game, like just beautiful glowing like lasers and stuff, and you play that with like surround sound. It was just awesome. That was one of the first games that I actively like tried to play with surround sound.
No. You'll have to like link it in.
Yeah, man. I will send you a link to that because that game is just the bee's knees. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll do that offline because there's just some great shit with that game.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking now, like maybe we should, kind of pose the question to the fans here in Discord, like what game, would they want to see remastered? Maybe for the next episode.
Yeah, that'd be a great
and why as well.
Yeah.
And we can even put like a timestamp on it, like maybe for the past 5 years, 10 years. We could do that like maybe once a month, or something.
Well, FF7 came out in 97. So I would say, 20 years.
Sure.
Is a good time frame because I'm sick of games being remastered and they're like 5 years old. Like, why are you doing that?
Right.
There's no point.
No, generally there isn't. I think one of the worst things that you can see sometimes is when a game gets like a quote unquote remaster and it's just like a touch up.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably have to save that topic for a different episode, but that's definitely something I want to talk about at some point because there are too many games that get like the right treatment, which is great, and too many games that get the wrong treatment, which is not so great. So
I agree. Well, man, did you have anything else that you want to chat about? I think we've covered all our main topics.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, kind of what you said in the beginning, like, thank you to everybody who's still sticking with us here. And, we really enjoy what we're doing. We promise you that we enjoy this as much as our schedules sometimes don't always coincide. We absolutely love to sit down for this hour and just, use this opportunity for us to get away from reality and delve back into the world of gaming.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. Get away from reality and just kind of, be gamers and talk about games. And it's a lot of fun, I always enjoy sitting down and just talking about stuff new and old. It doesn't have to be from a certain era because I love it all. And I don't get to play as much as I'd like to, but hopefully that's going to change.
Well, the way I see it now, man, and I hope that this resonates with a lot of us as adults. You want to see gaming as like a treasure box, right? You kind of get this idea now that when you finally have the time to game, it's like opening up that chest in Zelda, and it's like and you're like, fuck yeah! Like it might only be for 5 minutes or an hour, but like I'm still opening a treasure box of something that still means a lot to me, and I think that if you look at the bright side and you look at it with an optimistic viewpoint on your little time that we now have with gaming, you can still make it a very, very much a treasure. And I'll leave it at that.
I like it. Very cool. Well, Will, if somebody wants to follow you, how can they find you on social media?
Will_gear.
And you can find me at ScionStorm. And of course, follow the show at WDGRPodcast. Keep your eyes open. There's going to be some more social media posts on our Facebook and Twitter in the very near future. I have been slacking on that, so my apologies, but homework is first.
Yes.
Man, that feels so weird saying that, and then now knowing that I don't have any more.
Nah.
Anyway, make sure you're subscribing. If you like the show, please take a moment to leave a review, or even if you don't like the show, leave a review too, anywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, join our Discord room for lots of great talk, great topics, and discussion about upcoming episodes, previous episodes. And man, we even have like a dedicated room for Avengers, although I think I'm going to delete that now because Avengers have been out for a while.
Yeah.
But thanks to everybody who have made the past 25 episodes possible. We really appreciate you guys sticking with us, and hopefully you'll join us for the next 25. We'll see you next time.
See ya.